So first, I'd like to just welcome everyone and thank you for joining today's webinar titled Retain Customers and Boost Revenue with Personalized Direct Mail. This webinar is part 2 of the Modern Marketers Best Practices series, How to Win with Direct Mail. In this 3-part series, we're covering how to integrate direct mail into your omnichannel campaigns, how to use real-time analytics to improve the ROI of your campaigns, and we'll be discussing all things direct mail personalization. We'll cover the strategy, how to execute true direct mail personalization at scale, and share how leading companies are driving ROI by personalizing their mail pieces. Before I get started, I want to cover a few housekeeping items. If you'd like to view the other webinars in this series, either live or on demand, you can register at the link highlighted in the chat. When you register for these webinars, you will also receive the Modern Marketers Best Practices Guide. The guide goes along with today's session in the top right corner of your screen under Handouts. Feel free to download that now, but we will also send it to you following the webinar along with the recording of today's session. So without further ado, let's get started. My name is Summer Hainlin, and I'm the Senior Director of Lob's Customer Success Team. I also wear a bit of a dual hat in that I am Lob's direct mail expert in residence. Lob partners with some of the largest mailers in the industry, and the brands that do personalization well not only stand out from the competition, but deliver the results they need to grow and position themselves as leaders in their categories. Evan and his team have done exactly that. Brands like iExit deliver ROI and revenue and create the kind of memorable customer experiences that consumers crave. So I'm very excited to talk about this topic with Evan and hear more about his lessons learned and success. So Evan, I will hand it over to you to give a quick intro.
Thank you. I'm Evan Metrock. I'm the founder and CEO of the iExit Interstate Exit Guide, which is a travel app for iPhone, Android, and the web that helps interstate travelers find the best businesses, best places to stop along interstates or divided highways in the United States, whether it's for cheapest gas, best restaurants, best hotel deals, and much, much more.
Wonderful. All right, so let's talk about the agenda a little bit. Today, we're going to be covering why customers love personalization, why businesses love personalization, how to scale your personalization, and then we'll also get into some Q&A with Evan on how iExit app is retaining customers and boosting revenue with direct mail personalization. We're going to be chatting for about 30 to 45 minutes and then answering any questions at the end. So please navigate over to the Q&A tab. You'll see it on the right-hand side, and ask any questions you have throughout this session. If you have additional questions about direct mail, you can also contact Hey, spelled H-E-Y, at lob.com, and we will get back to you ASAP. Now let's look at why personalization is more important than ever. I want to start off today's session by laying some groundwork. Why are we talking about personalization today? Basically, because personalization is key to forming emotional connections that engage consumers in today's marketplace. I know you were all able to read the slide up on here on the screen, but I'm going to go ahead and just read out these stats because I find them to be pretty effective. 91% of consumers are more likely to shop with brands that provide offers specific and relevant to them. 80% of customers are more likely to purchase products or services from brands that provide personalized experiences. And 71% of consumers feel frustrated when a shopping experience is impersonal. Bottom line, consumers believe that brands should offer more personalization in their marketing. Now that we've covered the importance of personalization within your direct marketing channels, I'd like to lay some groundwork on why we believe so strongly in direct mail as a channel that continuously drives efficient ROI. 67% of marketers who use direct mail in their channel mix claim that it has the best ROI of any other channel they use. As you know from the previous slides and stats, personalization drives engagement, ROI, and gives your consumer the experience they desire. So when we talk about investing in personalized direct mail, it means making your best channel even better. That being said, I am sure most people on the line today have used other channels aside from direct mail. What's important to note is that when digital and direct mail is combined, marketers see up to 40% higher conversion rates, 68% increased website visits, 63% increased response rates, and 53% increased leads. ROI is even greater when the multi or omni-channel customer experience is personalized. So now that we've set the stage for how important personalization is, I want to get to my favorite part of today's session, the proof in the real world scenario. Over the next 20 minutes or so, Evan, the founder of iExit app, is going to break down how they successfully leverage personalization in their direct mail channel. With that being said, let's move to our first question. So Evan, I'd love to learn more about how you were historically reaching out to your consumers and what jump-started that switch to direct mail. And then follow on, can you share iExit's thoughts behind this switch?
Absolutely. So I'll give you a little bit of background. So in the early days of iExit, years and years ago, we actually, there was no advertising in our app. We were selling the app. We were selling the app with, for $2.99, $1.99, whatever it was, different times in the App Store and in the Google Play Store. And that was our business model. And, time went on and that worked okay enough, but we realized that we needed to pivot to an advertising-based model where we ended up making the app free for our users to download in order to get more eyeballs. And we created an advertising product inside of iExit. And that ended up being what we call our exit sponsorship program. So there are plenty of exits out there that have many, many businesses located at them. And we have free listings for all of these businesses that happen to be near one or 2 miles near an interstate exit. And so we've got a bunch of free listings. We might have 100, 150 businesses listed at exit 50. And that makes it very difficult for any one of those businesses to stand out at that exit. And so we created this advertising product where one business per exit could pay us to be the top featured business at that exit. And so, okay, at this point, we've got something to sell. We got to go out and sell it. And so we went through a number of different, we didn't have a lot of emails for business owners. We might be able to reach out to advertising agencies and whatnot, but we really wanted to try to get at those independently owned businesses at interstate exits. And so we took to LinkedIn. We tried to find a bunch of business owners in certain areas, and that actually worked pretty well in terms of finding them, but then getting them to respond via the LinkedIn messages was difficult. And then we, ultimately went with cold calling. We had a whole month where we had the whole team cold calling businesses near interstate exits to inform them of our product and then try to sell. And we had a number of sales that came through, but in no way, form or fashion was it going to scale. And so it was around this time, probably back in 2017, 2018, where we came across Lob and realized, the light switch for direct mail came on. And then we also realized, wait a second, they have an API where they can hook up and we can actually design the mailer that's going to be sent out on a 1-by-1 basis. And so we took the good amount of time to truly integrate with Lob's API, not just to hook it up, but to hook it up and, have and design. I think our very first mailer was a 4x6 postcard, and we probably sent out 5,000 to, a certain group. I forget what states we targeted in the first batch. And lo and behold, people responded. And the way these mailers were designed was to send out an individual code for each recipient so that the Sonny's Barbecue at exit 50 could go and put this code into our website and claim their ownership of that listing, and to where they could update their own listing. And then from there, they could go on and purchase that exit 50 sponsorship if they wanted to. And we were blown away by the fact that even one person did it, let alone enough to make it profitable right off the bat. And so, that was a big deal for us. We realized that we could do this outreach at scale and have it be profitable. Was a big day for us.
So it sounds like with launching that 4x6 postcard, that was really the impetus for direct mail for you. I'm interested to know if you've applied any A/B test and learn methodology and tested some formats against one another, and also if any of the tests were surprising in their outcome. Feel free to share the good and the bad.
Absolutely. A/B testing has been a fundamental part of what we've been doing ever since we got started with direct mail. That first one, there was no A/B testing. We were just amazed that we actually got something up and running and sent it out. And it was in fact delivered to who we expected. It was all magical at that point. But then from there, we realized, no, wait a second, I'm sure we can do a lot better. And so we started A/B testing. Back in those days of Lob, I don't even believe there was a letter option. I think there was a 4x6 postcard and a 6x11 postcard. And so we tried different things. I think we largely tried different A/B testing. To give this overall a point here, we have probably 50 different A/B tests we've done from then up until now. So, back in those days, we were testing, on a 4x6 postcard, there's not a ton you can change up. And so we had changed up some of the wording on the front of that postcard. I remember we changed a few things around, and we would send out 1,500 per batch or for group A, and then for group B, we found that was a good number to where we could get back reliable numbers of which one was better and go with it. We eventually started testing with the bigger postcard, the 6x11, thinking that would actually have better results. It's tough, it's harder to avoid. We were shocked with how little response we got back from that. And that in no way is to disparage the 6x11 format all by itself. It could have been our message. It could have been a number of different things, but we tried it, a similar message as to what was on our 4x6 with the bigger 6x11, and we were surprised. It didn't get the results we expected. So we went back to that. And then if you fast forward to the current years, when a letter became an option, we realized through these follow-up conversations, people would respond to our postcard and give us a call and so on and so on. And we would have very similar conversations about questions that were left unanswered. They wanted to know, well, one of the biggest things, honestly, is that we are not the blue logo signs that you would find along the interstate. And so we realized we need to devote some more, explanation right off the bat that that's not who we are. We need to explain how many people are going to see this, because they would always ask, well, how many people are going to see this right at my exit? How many people use your app right near my exit? And different questions like that we got over the years. We realized we need to put some more information on this letter. We need to get to the point of it and, not be too wordy right off the bat. But what we have done is we've now created a 2-page letter through all of these tests, to where we have the second page is an FAQ page that answers the 6 or 7 or 8 most common questions. And you see it here on the screen, which is probably a 2-page letter format, a template of ours from actually about a year or two ago. And so ours looks a little bit different now, but the idea is the same. Is the front page. Our front page wording is actually a good bit shorter than this now. But we've got, that we've got a picture of the phone that shows what their sponsorship is going to look like. On the second page, we've got answers to these questions that we realized we were answering either by email or over the phone every time once they got a postcard from us. So we started giving them more information. If they make it to page 2, they're interested. They want to know more about this. And so we try to answer those questions there. And at this point in our A/B testing journey, we have found a very reliable 2-page template for outreach for businesses near interstate exits that works really well for us.
Fantastic. It sounds really to me like there might be something to be said for the fact that the letter includes the information that your customers are looking for based on having those phone discussions. But it also sounds like there's something about the format itself that works really well versus a postcard. And I wonder, and this is just like my focus group of one kind of hat on, I wonder if there's something to be said for reaching out to a business with a letter, something that feels a little bit more official versus a postcard, and the business thinking, okay, well, normally when I'm being marketed to, it's in a postcard. When I'm receiving my bills, it's a letter. I need to open this thing. Do you have any thoughts on that?
That's our best guess as well. We have, because it's hard to know the answer to these questions. We just A/B test and we see the results and we see, okay, the letter's performing better, and so we kind of can draw our own narrative. But I think that's the case. I think whether, and I do know this, is that in many cases, it might not be the owner of the business going out to get the mail every day. It might be somebody else doing it on behalf of the owner, and they might be trying to spare the owner having to look through all this junk mail. And so if it's a letter, no one's going to throw that away unless they're quite sure what it is. With a postcard, maybe that does not pass the initial test and get onto the eyeballs that we want it to get to. So in any event, in our case, we have seen that letter performs better just for our specific use case than any of the sizes of the postcard.
Yeah, absolutely. It's your champion for sure. And your creative approach really leverages personalization beyond just first name.
Mm-hmm.
What led your team to this more personalized state?
So, the LOBS API allowing the design of the postcard or letter, what have you, to be something that is made out of HTML and CSS on our own server was amazing. It meant that we weren't limited just to the personalization of, as you're talking about with names or business name or address or different, variables like that. We could design this thing uniquely for each individual recipient. And so, if you go back to the letter itself, the picture of the letter, you'll see on that first page right there on the left page, you see a picture of an iPhone. And so there's two arrows there, but it's the top arrow that really is worthwhile here, is that is pointing to the recipient of this particular letter is a Jimmy John's at whatever exit that is, exit 10. And so we are able to show, hey, we are able to render this phone and show their exit with that Jimmy John's potential sponsorship and what it would look like, literally, if somebody were driving down that interstate, if they were to be the sponsor, and then show the next exit, which is in fact their real life next exit, and they're going to know what that next exit is and the business is there, because oftentimes businesses don't want to just win customers away from their nearby competitors. They want to win that business away from the adjacent exits business. And so that's part of our messaging as well. And so we were able to render this entire graphic, and it's unique to each recipient. And when they see this, they have to look at it and realize, wow, this is absolutely personalized to me. You look over at the map as well on that other page. We've got a map that we render with each recipient that highlights their interstate and shows, here's how many people used iExit over the last year in this red highlighted area. And they'll look at the map, and even if they're not the most map savvy people, they'll be able to realize that's my stretch of I-95 leading up to my exit. And so that works as well. And so, and from there on out, we've personalized. If it's a restaurant, we've got restaurant specific copy in the letter. If it's a hotel, talking about a lot of our users are looking for same day hotel reservations. For truck stops, we've got drivers of RVs and truckers that in families that are looking for a big travel stop with clean bathrooms to stop at. And so we've got different language based on whatever business is receiving it that is just littered all throughout this letter in terms of personalization. That, again, that's a big part of the A/B test that we do, is to test out which personalization works the best. But we know as a fact that, we're going to end up choosing some form of personalization because it works phenomenally.
Absolutely. And I know you've already talked about this a little bit in answering the first question about some of the supporting elements of the different personalization on the page. But do you have any data that supports certain elements as winning over others, as like the ones that consumers are really focusing on?
So, for us, and I'm not sure if this answers your question, but I mean, for us, the graphical personalization was, a big thing for us, as I've already kind of touched on. And then in terms of the copy, you see that 2-page letter, there's a lot of copy there, but we spend probably more time than anything else on that first sentence or two of the letter. When they open this thing up, that's the first thing they're going to end up reading. They're going to probably look at the graphics as well before they end up reading that whole first page. But we spend a lot of time on that first sentence, especially on that first paragraph. And when we were on the smaller postcards as well, that was certainly our entire focus. We A/B tested every word that was on that. But we don't have the names of the recipients, the business owners. We don't have that type of personalization. If we did, we probably would use it. So that might be something that other users might have for different use cases. But the copy right off the bat, and then having something where we can show exactly what this sponsorship is, what iExit looks like, and what their advertisement when purchased would look like is has been the biggest thing for us in terms of getting their attention and keeping it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm curious to know personally, just from your perspective, what do you think it is about personalization that drives such a positive response?
So, you see this certainly when it comes to email marketing. It certainly applies to direct mail. It's an uphill battle to get somebody's attention. Just as what we were talking about, and perhaps why the letter works better is that for us that if it can be thrown out, maybe somebody's going to throw out that postcard. Perhaps maybe we weren't doing as good a job, and maybe that really isn't the case. But it is an uphill battle to get in the right hands, the decision makers' hands, and get their attention and get them to read something. And so, from a personalization standpoint, once they open up that letter for us, we got to get their attention. We got to make sure they realize this is real, this is legitimate, this applies to their business, this can help them get more customers. Whatever your sales proposition is, that's ours. And so personalization is everything. If we had a generic letter, generic flyer at Exit 50, and every single business at Exit 50 got the exact same looking thing, our success rate would be much less than our current solution that Lob allows us to do, which is to have a personalized letter for each of the 50 businesses at that exit, for a different letter with different copy for all the restaurants there, for the dozen hotels there. They're going to get their own copy, their own, slightly altered sales pitch. And so, yeah, that's the biggest thing, is to get someone's attention, to get the business owner, to get the, decision makers' attention. Personalization's been the name of the game for us.
It really drives that relevance and makes it so that iExit remains sticky in their mind because they've already seen themselves in the situation. I love that idea around the visuals too. I'm curious to know, because you mentioned email in the last answer, if you've currently leveraged additional direct channels within your acquisition program, and if you have plans to do so in the second half of this year.
So we do a good bit of email campaigns for sure. The biggest thing for us is once somebody has responded to our direct mail and they're in our system, they have an iExit business owner account. They can update their business listing, which is free to do. That's all free. We hope they go on and purchase our paid advertising program, but they don't have to. But still, we've got this list of business owners at this point that we follow up with email newsletters on a continual basis. We certainly follow up with those that have not purchased our advertising program, and we'll let all of these business owners know about new features and whatnot. We certainly do that from a customer acquisition standpoint. There are a few brands that we have been able to gather email addresses for, like general managers of different hotels, like Choice Hotels, I believe, for all the different Choice Hotel brands, Comfort Inn, Hampton Inn, and so on, have the general manager's email address on the pages of their public pages for their hotels. And so we are able to gather emails that way. And so we did have a campaign where we combined a direct mail piece with a timed series of emails where we would let the other end of the email with the general manager know, hey, you're going to, because you are, this is the email associated with the Hampton Inn in Atlanta, Georgia, downtown, you will be receiving a piece of mail at your property in about 7 days. And actually in that one, we did not have a call to action in the email itself. We were just giving them a heads up. And then 6 days later, we gave them another heads up saying, be sure to check your inbox, your physical mailbox. And then if we hadn't heard back from them, we'd have one more email saying, hey, your letter should have arrived by now. And the whole point saying, we're not going to give you information through email. We are mailing you this secure letter so that you can securely claim ownership of your hotel. And then basically the letter was similar to what you saw before. And that worked pretty well. There was a slightly improved conversion percentage with that back and forth campaign than there was just by sending them a letter. And so we probably would try to do that more often if we had access to a email database like that for all the different brands. But the reality is that we don't, and so we end up having to stick to primarily direct mail. But we would like to integrate more of these things for sure, but that requires us to have, we're not going to, we don't necessarily spam corporate emails for the corporate office to try to buy, at an ad agency level. That's more of a one-on-one sort of thing. But for the something like this, we just don't have access to that. So direct mail has been our bread and butter for the most part.
Yeah, and it sounds like when you have the option and you communicate to someone via email first and second, and then follow up with direct mail, you're really priming the pump. Like, you're driving that brand recognition early on. You're giving them the heads up. You're not trying to sell them anything right off the bat. You're getting them comfortable with your brand. And then when somebody has something physical in their hand, they recall the email or two emails, and it feels like it's more trustworthy. Like, you've already built that relationship with them. And also, I mean, we know the stat of direct mail lives in a US household or business an average of 17 days, which is crazy when you think about it, but that's just how Americans are. And so that brand recognition, again, lives on another 2+ weeks. So if only you had more email addresses.
Yeah, absolutely. And to be completely realistic, it is not as if you send these emails and everyone is happy to receive them. There have been plenty of cases where they'll immediately tell you, please unsubscribe me from your list. But for the most part, yeah. So again, the idea is to get through to people and help them realize this is a real thing. And email is just harder that way, and especially when if you are executing some process where you're sending 2 or 3 emails, you risk annoying people that they're getting spam, even if it's not necessarily spam. And so from that standpoint, again, that's another plus. I feel like for direct mail, it's just less. People just get so much spam from email that they're much more on edge with it, and so that's it's harder to spam with direct mail than it is for email. So you end up getting through more often.
Yeah, email opt-out rates are going through the roof. The latest iOS security issues have made it difficult to even track email open rates if you're opening on an Apple device. Average number of inboxes for Americans is between 3 and 5, which I think is on the low end, and you're receiving upwards of 100 emails a day. So that's a lot to keep fresh in your mind, especially also considering you have a mailbox where you receive an average of 2 to 4 mail pieces per day. So you're going to give that a longer consideration period. So it makes sense.
Absolutely.
Curious to know what you are most excited to test or implement from test wins later on this year.
So, we used to, we would A/B test, the postcard sizes, and then between letter and 1-page letter versus 2-page letter. I think we're done with that for iExit. I think we're done with, the different channels. We found something that works. It's taken years to figure it out. We're happy with that. So now a lot of what we're doing is focusing on the wording, and we might change up the graphics and layout and different things. But again, in large part, we're happy with the template we've got right now. It's just a matter of what we put on there. And so probably the biggest thing we've got coming down the pipeline is we are in the midst of forming a partnership with Apple Maps, in a data partnership with Apple Maps that would allow the businesses in iExit to, if they're not already in there, to have listings on Apple Maps and to have their data be able to be updated. So the business owners that have taken the time to claim their listing with iExit and have updated the amenities and logo and different things in iExit, that up-to-date and accurate listing would become automatically an up-to-date listing with Apple Maps, again, if it's not already perfectly accurate. And so that's a big deal, and we want our business owners to know that. We want anyone that receives a letter from us to know that iExit is a legitimate program making partnerships with big companies out there We already have a partnership on the hotel side with Priceline Partner Network. We've got a partnership with Yelp, and so Apple's probably the biggest of any of those. And we want our business owners to know that, anyone potentially advertising with us. So how to roll that out in the letter, how to get the message across, and not make the letter entirely about that, because we don't want the letter to be entirely about that. We want the letter to be about our program, about our advertising program, the actual program we're trying to sell. But we also want to get the word out about this big partnership, and so that'll be the focus. We're waiting on. We've got discussions next week on hopefully the final steps of getting this thing in place. And so it's just, it's a slow process. It's not rolled out yet. So we're not A/B testing this yet. But once it's official and once our listings are showing up in Apple Maps, we're going to start sending out letters with this new information. And so that's the biggest A/B test coming down the pipeline for us is, where to mention it, how many times to mention it. We'll have a number of tests, whether we should show anything graphically, whether we should just talk about this or leave it on the FAQ page, things like that.
Yeah, it's definitely
that's the biggest thing.
It's a huge reason to believe for your brand. That we are huge fans of direct mail over here, and we know that you are as well. And it's really fascinating to see a more traditional channel being further empowered by data-driven technology. And it's really incredible to see customer engagement with iExit that is then driving that technological advancement for your own product and taking your brand even further. That being said, the Apple partnership is huge. But beyond that, what are you most excited about for the coming months and of course, years?
So, we've got a number of projects coming down the pipeline, not all necessarily, direct mail related. We've got, honestly, the biggest thing that with us that is an ongoing project, has been for years, is our SEO project from a search engine optimization standpoint. We've gotten to the point where we are, anything that if you were to type in interstate or interstate exit, anything, I-65, you type in I-95 gas prices or restaurants or hotel deals or anything, and you tack on an interstate or the word interstate to it, we've done a really good job of being the go-to source for that. And even if you type in gas prices, you put on an interstate at the end of it, we weren't always up there. Gas Buddy would take that, even though their results were not related to an interstate exit or whatever. We've done a good job of conquering that search as well. And we've got a number of other searches that we're working on just to really be at the top of the king of those searches. If they happen to have anything to do with the interstate, that's where we want to be. And so that's an ongoing thing that we've had success with. We've got many more projects along those lines we want to be better at. We've got different parts of the app we've got big updates coming to both the iPhone and the Android version that not just add different features to the app, but also add compatibility with Apple CarPlay and Google and Android Auto. So we've got a number of different things coming down the pipeline. The Apple partnership is the most immediate because that's coming up hopefully in the next weeks to months. Where we launched that, and again, from a direct mail standpoint, that's the thing that we would be focusing on. We wouldn't necessarily be mentioning many of those other things. We mention those other things as follow-up in our newsletters to people who respond to and claim their business, and so we give updates that way. But from a direct mail standpoint, that's the biggest. There's one that's the one we're focusing on in terms of getting the message out.
Well, you're getting shout outs on the right-hand side within the Q&A. So
cool.
Congratulations from the people listening in on this webinar. We're really excited to continue this partnership. So excited for this new partnership you're doing with Apple. This has been a great session, and I love hearing firsthand how your business has used direct mail to acquire new customers, generate revenue, increase ROI, partner with Apple Maps, and much more to come. Your journey is really inspiring, and we cannot thank you enough for joining us today. With that being said, I'd like to look at the forum for questions to see if there are some that you and I could answer. As I scroll down, I see one that is a question around how you design your direct mail piece through Lob. I imagine that the way that you designed it maybe a couple of years ago versus now might be different. Is there anything you wanted to say around that?
I'm sure there are, and this is far from my expertise level, but I'm sure there are different that Lob can make it real easy to design these mailers using, going through the Lob dashboard. But for us, that and even today, we probably wouldn't use that. We since we're in the software world, we have loved the ability to just create a page on our website and give it inputs through the URL line for a particular business, and then just design it. And you guys have good tools you can download to create that template page, and then you can build from there, whether it would be 4x6, 6x9, 6x11 postcard, or then a letter. And then if you got multiple pages, you've got the HTML templates where you can just show exactly how those pages would be delineated. And then from there, you are just creating HTML and with CSS, and the API makes it real easy to test that once it's converted to a PDF. That is always, when we're in design mode, one of the biggest, and it can be frustrating as well. And nothing on Lop's part, it's just part of it. But you got this HTML you're looking at, and then it's converted to a PDF, and it looks slightly different. So you got to go back and figure out how to fix that. But it's just a matter of being able to design something with HTML and CSS that looks good, and then and go from there. That has not changed from the early days of Lob, and we wouldn't want it to. That's why it hasn't changed. I mean, the flexibility it offers to be able to design pretty much anything we want on that letter has been phenomenal. And so if you know anything about HTML and CSS, that's the way to go, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. We actually have a very exciting announcement that I'm personally excited to share because it just launched, where it is a campaigns tool where you can basically put in your creative, your target audience list. You can personalize that creative with merge variables, and then you just literally click a couple buttons and it executes at scale. Because we've heard feedback before that personalization can be something that people all have the desire to do, but you don't all have the bandwidth. I mean, marketers' jobs are incredibly busy, and they are part of teams that are always continuously being cut and trimmed. And so there are more and more demands on people's plates these days, and fewer hours to get those things done. So while you might have the biggest intentions in the world, personalization is maybe not going to be the first thing that you make sure gets out the door. You just want to get your creative all straight and get it through all of your all the routing and all of the different teams, like legal and PR, your own leadership, and everyone's an art director. We all know that. So it's tough enough just to get something out the door, let alone personalize it. So this new tool that Lob just launched and that many of our customers are already leveraging has been incredible, just to give marketers the power to just get it done in a couple clicks.
Awesome.
Let's see if there's anything else over here. I know I personally had a question for you, Evan, around, and this is a question that our team receives quite a bit. When you are reaching out to prospective customers, how many touches does it generally take to get someone to respond to your offer?
So that's a great question. I mean, it ranges for us for sure. I mean, we have plenty of examples where somebody gets that letter in the mail and they respond to it. We only got to touch them one time, and they're in the system, and they might even purchase off that first one. And that's amazing when that happens. But that's far from the normal case, I would say. It's and I don't have any hard data on this necessarily, but I know as a fact we send letters 3 or 4 or 5 times to some recipients before they end up responding, and then they'll respond, and then they'll purchase the product for their exit. It's not. I have encountered many people who push back on direct mail that if it didn't work the first time, it is not going to work, and it just couldn't be farther from the truth. That in so many cases, and a lot of it depends on exactly what you're selling and the price of what you're selling and whatnot. But it takes, in the the majority of the times it takes multiple touches, if not 3 or 4 or 5, or even more before you finally get through. You don't get thrown in the trash. You end up, you find somebody on a day where they've got time to read it. You find somebody at a time where they've got the marketing budget to spend something right now. It might not be the right time of the year for their marketing budget. And so there's all sorts of variables at play that might explain why that particular time didn't work. But yeah, quite often it is multiple times required before you get what you want.
It's about staying top of mind more than anything else. And the thing about the direct mail channels, it stays top of mind easier than some of the more digital focused channels, because we have, as human beings, learned how to turn off what we're seeing on screens because we are inundated. Another question just came through about changing designs per touch point. I can personally say with the customers that we work with who do multiple acquisition touch points, that many of them will adapt their design just to call out the fact that maybe they've reached out before, or they'll tweak something very lightly. And also we've seen across different lines of business, something like like a win back campaign, they will personalize that to literally reference what the person has left behind, maybe what their favorite meal was, maybe what a product was that was in their cart. There's a lot of different things that you can do with creative to stay top of mind, even as you continually reach out to these same customers. All right. I wanted to actually break a little bit early because I understand that an hour is a long time for quite a few people to be making in their day. Actually, let me just see here. How often should we be sending out direct mail to the same lead? Great question. I think if I knew the answer to that for all businesses, I would be lying on a beach somewhere and I would not be working. But I will tell you that it's important to test your communication stream and to see how many touches is too many or how many is too few. I've seen some brands have a lot of success with every other week. Other brands will actually touch weekly. Some do monthly. So it really depends on what you are offering to the customer, what the goal of the line of business is, like what is your KPI, and also what your budget is. So it's all about really testing and trying things out, because like Evan said earlier in this conversation, even there really isn't a golden ticket even on format. Postcards work really well for people. Letters work really well for people. So there isn't necessarily that perfect answer. It's all about just testing with the right data and making sure you can measure it.
For us, I can tell you that we don't touch a customer. We don't send to the same customer if it's been less than 3 months. For us, that, and again, that's everybody's use case would be different, but it is a very important question. I can tell you that, to figure out what that should be. But we typically leave it at that and then follow up pretty much if we need to 4 times a year is where we're at.
Yeah. We saw some recent success with another customer for chronic non-responders. So people haven't responded in the last 6 months, where they changed up the format and the creative, and they were able to drive a pretty high response rate just by kind of like taking a beat and then giving them something fresh.
Gotcha. I see Kirk wrote on here, curious, how does the customer generate the custom iPhone images? I'm assuming he's talking about from the letter that he saw of ours. So again, that's the beauty of HTML, just being able to create anything unique like you would on a web page, is that I think we've got a blank background of a phone that you could, it just looks like a phone that has a blank background on it. And then we do generate everything you see inside of that phone to make it look like exactly what you would see on our iPhone. And so if it's for Chick-fil-A at exit 100, we're going to render what the sponsored listing for that Chick-fil-A would be. And then around that, we're going to render exit 100 and the summary of the businesses at exit 100 with icons. Then we're going to show exit 103 below it, and then show exit 106, and actually render HTML for each of those until it fills the screen of that iPhone. And lo and behold, you've got what looks like an iPhone. It was just rendered entirely from HTML, and it's unique to that Chick-fil-A at exit 100. And so that is automated, for us. You supply whatever the business is, and we've taken the time to design that template and that part of the page for a phone that has a unique, a specialized look for it. And so it took us a while. It took us a while to design these little snippets that, whether it go on a postcard or a letter, we're going to be able to reuse it over and over again. But we knew how important that was. We knew how much it was worth the time to take. And now we've got a very personalized letter with these different little widgets we can pop in there that in summary, in some, do the trick for us to get the point across.
Yeah, absolutely. I see a couple more questions coming through that are a little more on the technical side, so I'm just making some notes for follow-up with our solutions engineers who can answer some of these much better than myself. So with the last couple of minutes that we have, just wanted to remind everyone that this is actually part 2 of a 3-part session. We're going to be hosting one final session on real-time analytics. So if you'd like to join us, we'll be here same time, same place, but on May 25th. So there should be a link in the chat for you to register if you've not already done so. This session will be led by Andrew Regan, who is a product manager here at Lob. And as I mentioned also at the beginning of the session, when you sign up for these webinars, you will get the Modern Marketer's Best Practices Guide. So be sure to sign up to get that full access. So thank you all again for joining today. And thank you, Evan, for sharing your expertise and your experience with leveraging automated personalized direct mail at scale. If you'd like to learn more about how you can also send direct mail at scale, please fill out the poll that should be coming up live on your screen. There it is. And we will have a Lob rep reach out following the webinar. I appreciate everyone's time, and I really hope to see you back here on May 25th for our final session in the Modern Marketer's Best Practices series. And I hope you all have a great day.
Thanks a lot, everyone.